Have you ever walked past someone in need and pretended not to notice? In our busy lives, it's so easy to keep our heads down, to tell ourselves that someone else will help, that we don't have time. But what if that one moment of choosing to stop, to truly see another person, could change two lives forever? Sometimes the greatest miracles happen, not because we're looking for them, but because we're willing to pause when everyone else keeps walking. December 23rd, the streets of Manhattan glittered with Christmas lights, each storefront trying to outshine the next with elaborate decorations. Snow fell steadily, blanketing the sidewalks in white and muffling the usual city chaos. Families hurried past carrying shopping bags and wrapped presents, everyone eager to get home before the storm worsened. Alexander Hunt pulled his cashmere coat tighter as he exited the premiere of his company's charity gala at the Plaza Hotel. At 45, he'd built Hunt Technologies into a $20 billion empire, and tonight's fundraiser had been another success. $2 million raised for various causes, endless networking opportunities, his photograph taken with politicians and celebrities. But as his driver pulled the Bentley to the curb, Alexander felt the familiar emptiness that always followed these events. All that money, all those people, and yet he'd go home to his penthouse alone. Again, Mr. Hunt, we should leave before the roads get worse. His driver, Thomas, called through the open door. Alexander was about to climb in when he heard it, a small, frightened voice cutting through the festive noise. Please, someone help me. He turned and saw her. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, standing alone on the corner beneath a street lamp. She wore a thin pink jacket that was completely inadequate for the weather, and her dark hair was dusted with snow. Her small frame shook, whether from cold or fear, Alexander couldn't tell. She was approaching people as they passed, reaching out with mittened hands, but everyone hurried by, too busy, too focused on their own holiday plans. One woman actually recoiled when the child touched her arm, as if poverty might be contagious. Something in Alexander's chest tightened. The girl looked so small, so desperately alone in the holiday crowd. Stay here, he told Thomas, and crossed the street. The little girl was crying now, tears freezing on her cheeks. As Alexander approached, she looked up at him with enormous brown eyes full of terror. Sir, she trembled, her voice barely audible over the street noise. Sir, please, my grandma disappeared. I can't find her. I don't know what to do. Alexander knelt down, ignoring the snow soaking through his expensive suit pants. What's your name, sweetheart? I'm Maya, the girl stuttered through chattering teeth. Maya Santos. We were shopping for Christmas dinner, and Grandma said to wait by the store while she went to get money from the machine. But she never came back. That was, I don't know how long ago. A long time. Alexander looked around, trying to spot an elderly woman who might be frantically searching for a lost child. But the streets were chaos, hundreds of people, everyone moving, no one paying attention. How long have you been standing here? Alexander asked gently. I don't know, Maya sobbed. Forever. It's so cold and I'm scared, and no one will stop. Everyone just keeps walking. Alexander felt anger rise in his throat. How many people had passed this frightened child and done nothing? How long had she been standing here, begging for help? Okay, Maya, he said, keeping his voice calm and reassuring. I'm going to help you find your grandma. Can you show me where you last saw her? Maya nodded eagerly, relief flooding her small face. The grocery store is down that street. Grandma said to wait by the door, but then I got scared when she didn't come back. So I walked here where there's more people. But everyone just, she trailed off, fresh tears spilling over. They don't see you, Alexander finished. But I see you. Come on, let's find your grandma. He stood and offered his hand. Maya took it without hesitation, her tiny cold fingers gripping his like a lifeline. Together they started down the snowy street, leaving behind the Bentley and the warm comfort it represented. Thomas started to call after him, but Alexander waved him off. Some things were more important than staying dry. Maya led Alexander through 3 blocks of holiday chaos, her small hand never letting go of his. She kept looking up at him, as if afraid he might disappear too. This stranger who'd finally stopped to help. This is it, Maya said, pointing to a small corner grocery store wedged between a pharmacy and a closed laundromat. The store's windows were decorated with paper snowflakes and twinkling lights, trying desperately to match the glamour of the big department stores nearby. And your grandma told you to wait right here? Alexander asked. Maya nodded. By the door, She said she'd be 5 minutes. But it's been so much longer than that, and she didn't come back, and I thought maybe she fell or got lost, or her voice broke. Alexander pulled out his phone. Let's call the police. They can help us. No, Maya grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Grandma says we can't call the police. She says they'll take me away if they know she lost me. Please, sir, we just have to find her. She has to be close by. Alexander frowned. There was something in Maya's desperation that suggested a deeper fear than just a lost grandmother. Maya, are you and your grandma, are you in some kind of trouble? The little girl's eyes filled with tears again. We don't have much money. Grandma does cleaning jobs, but it's hard for her because her back hurts. She always says if anyone from the government finds out she can't take care of me proper, they'll put me in a home. So please, we can't call the police. We just have to find her. Alexander's heart clenched. This child was terrified, not just of losing her grandmother, but of losing her home, her family, her entire world. Okay, he said gently. No police yet. Let's think. Where was the ATM your grandma went to? She said around the corner, but I don't know which corner. She told me not to follow because… Maya hesitated. Because what? Because sometimes the machines don't work, and she gets embarrassed when there's not enough money. She didn't want me to see. Alexander closed his eyes briefly. How many times had he withdrawn cash without thinking, annoyed if the transaction took more than 30 seconds? He'd never considered what it must be like to approach an ATM with dread, hoping there would be enough for groceries. There are probably several ATMs nearby, Alexander said, thinking out loud. She could be at any of them, or maybe she had trouble with one, and went looking for another. Or, he stopped. An elderly woman with a walker moved slowly through the crowd half a block away. Even from a distance, Alexander could see the panic on her face as she searched the crowd, moving as fast as her walker would allow. Is that her? Alexander pointed. Maya's head whipped around, and her face transformed with joy. Grandma, Grandma, she started to run, but Alexander kept hold of her hand. Wait, we'll go together. We don't want to lose you in this crowd. They hurried toward the elderly woman, Maya practically dragging Alexander along. As they got closer, Alexander could see that Maya's grandmother was crying, her weathered face streaked with tears, her entire body shaking. Maya, oh my baby girl. The woman dropped to her knees, walker forgotten, and Maya flew into her arms. They clung to each other, both sobbing, and Alexander felt his own eyes stinging. Around them the holiday crowd flowed on, barely noticing the reunion happening on the snowy sidewalk. I'm so sorry, Mia, the grandmother kept saying. I'm so sorry. The first ATM was broken, and the second one said I didn't have enough money, and I had to walk 6 blocks to find one that would give me just $20. And when I came back you weren't there, and I thought… She couldn't finish, overcome with emotion. It's okay, Grandma, Maya whispered, patting her grandmother's back with a tenderness that seemed far too mature for a 7-year-old. This nice man helped me. He didn't walk away like everyone else. The grandmother looked up at Alexander for the first time, really seeing him. Her eyes widened slightly, taking in his expensive coat, his obvious wealth. Alexander saw fear flicker across her face. The fear of judgment, of being found lacking, of losing her granddaughter to someone who might report them to authorities. Thank you, she said carefully, struggling to her feet with Maya's help. Thank you for helping my granddaughter. We're fine now. We should get home. Wait, Alexander said. Please, just wait a moment. The grandmother, whose name was Rosa Santos, looked ready to bolt, but Maya's hand in hers kept her rooted. Alexander could see the calculation in the older woman's eyes, weighing the risk of staying against the rudeness of running. I just want to make sure you're both okay, Alexander said gently. That's a long walk for a cold night, and Maya's been out here for quite a while. We live close, Rosa said quickly. Just a few blocks. We'll be fine. Grandma, I'm really cold, Maya said softly. And hungry. Rosa's face crumpled with guilt. I know, Mia, we'll get home, and I'll make you soup. I'm sorry the store was too expensive today. We'll go to the cheaper one tomorrow. Alexander made a decision. There's a diner around the corner, he said. Nothing fancy, just warm food and hot chocolate. Please, let me buy you both dinner. It's Christmas, and… He paused, searching for words that wouldn't sound condescending. And I'd like the company. I was heading home alone to an empty apartment. Rosa studied his face, looking for the catch. Alexander had never been looked at quite like that before. with such awareness, such practiced distrust of kindness. Why? Rosa asked finally. Why do you care? It was a fair question. Alexander thought about the gala he'd just left. The $2 million raised for charity by people who would walk past a freezing child on the street. He thought about his penthouse with its view of the city, where he'd never once noticed the people struggling below. Because Maya asked for help, and I happened to be there, Alexander said simply. And because it's the right thing to do. Something in Rosa's posture softened slightly. Just dinner, nothing else. Just dinner, Alexander promised. 20 minutes later, they sat in a booth at Murphy's Diner, a place Alexander had never noticed despite walking past it 100 times. It was the kind of establishment that served reliable comfort food to working-class families. Nothing fancy, but warm and welcoming. Maya attacked her grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup with the intensity of someone who hadn't eaten in a while. Rosa sipped her coffee slowly, still watching Alexander with cautious eyes. How long have you been raising Maya alone? Alexander asked gently. Rosa's shoulders tensed, but after a moment, she answered. Since she was 2. My daughter, Maya's mother, she had problems. Drugs. She left Maya with me one day, and never came back. I got legal custody eventually, but it's hard. I'm 68 years old. I clean offices at night, 4 different buildings. It's not much money, but it's enough for our room and food, usually. What about Maya's father? Alexander asked. Never knew him, Rosa said quietly. My daughter wouldn't say. Maya is all I have. She's my whole world. Her voice broke slightly. I know I can't give her much. I know there are families with more money, nicer homes, but I love her. I love her so much. Grandma's the best, Maya said fiercely through a mouthful of sandwich. She reads me stories every night, and helps with my homework, even though English is hard for her. And she makes the best rice and beans in the whole world. Rosa smiled, despite her tears. You're biased, Mia. Alexander watched them, this tiny fierce family unit, that had nothing but each other. He thought about his own empty life, his penthouse full of expensive furniture, but devoid of laughter, of love, of these small moments of connection. Rosa, he said carefully, can I ask what happened tonight? Why were you shopping so late on December 23rd? Rosa looked down at her coffee. I get paid tomorrow, but we needed food today. I only had $24 left, and the store near our place wanted $18 just for a small chicken. I thought maybe the bigger grocery store would be cheaper, but it wasn't. I could only afford a bag of rice and some beans with what I had. I thought maybe if I could get $20 from the ATM, I could buy Maya a proper Christmas dinner. But, she trailed off, shame coloring her cheeks. The account was empty. Alexander finished gently. Rosa nodded. I get paid tomorrow. Tomorrow will be fine. But tonight, she looked at Maya, who was contentedly dipping her sandwich in soup, oblivious to her grandmother's humiliation. Tonight I failed her. No, Alexander said firmly. Tonight you walked over a mile in the snow trying to find a way to give your granddaughter a Christmas dinner. That's not failure, Rosa. That's love. After dinner, Alexander insisted on driving them home. Rosa protested, but Maya was exhausted, practically falling asleep against her grandmother's side in the booth. Finally, Rosa agreed. Thomas pulled up with the Bentley, his eyes widening slightly when he saw Alexander's companions. But to his credit, he simply opened the door and helped Rosa carefully into the car, making sure her walker was secured. Where to? Thomas asked. Rosa gave an address in a neighborhood Alexander had never visited, the kind of area where people worked 3 jobs to pay rent, where dreams were modest because survival took precedence. As they drove through streets that grew progressively less festive, less decorated, less hopeful, Alexander felt something fundamental shifting inside him. This was the same city he lived in, but it might as well have been another planet. Rosa and Maya's building was a 5-story walk-up in desperate need of repair. The front door lock was broken, and the hallway smelled of mildew and old cooking. They climbed 3 flights of stairs, Rosa moving slowly with her walker, Maya helping support her grandmother despite her own exhaustion. Their apartment was a single room with a tiny kitchenette and a bathroom so small you could barely turn around. A full-size bed took up most of the space, clearly where both Rosa and Maya slept. A small artificial Christmas tree sat on a milk crate in the corner, decorated with paper chains and handmade ornaments. It was the smallest, most humble home Alexander had ever seen, and yet, it was spotlessly clean. and there was love in every carefully arranged detail. "Thank you again for the dinner," Rosa said, clearly eager for Alexander to leave now that he'd seen how they lived. "You've been very kind." Alexander looked at Maya, who was already climbing onto the bed, her eyes drooping. He looked at Rosa, trying to hide her shame at the poverty Alexander had witnessed, and he made a decision that surprised even himself. "Rosa," he said, "I'd like to do something for you and Maya, if you'll let me." Rosa stiffened. "We don't need charity." "It's not charity," Alexander said. "It's Christmas. Please, let me make a few phone calls." Rosa started to refuse, but Maya spoke up half asleep. "Please, Grandma. He's nice. He helped us when no one else would." Rosa looked at her granddaughter, then back at Alexander. Whatever she saw in his face must have convinced her, because she nodded slowly. Christmas Eve morning, Alexander stood outside Rosa and Maya's building with a team of people and a plan that had kept him up most of the night, making calls and pulling strings. When Rosa opened the door to his knock, her eyes widened in shock. Behind Alexander stood delivery men carrying bags of groceries, not just any groceries, but a full Christmas feast. Turkey, ham, fresh vegetables, pies, everything a family could want. "Mr. Hunt." "What?" "Alexander," he corrected. "Please, call me Alexander, and this is just the beginning." "Maya, are you ready for an adventure?" The little girl who'd been peeking around her grandmother nodded eagerly. Over the next hours, Alexander orchestrated what he later thought of as the most important business deal of his life. He took Maya shopping, real shopping, not the desperate budgeting her grandmother usually did. They bought a warm winter coat, proper snow boots, new clothes that actually fit. Maya's eyes grew wider with each purchase, as if she couldn't quite believe it was real. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, a team Alexander had hired was working under Rosa's watchful but bewildered supervision. They were making repairs, fixing the broken window, patching the walls, replacing the ancient space heater with a safe, efficient heating system. A new bed was brought up the stairs, plus a fold-out couch, so Maya could have her own sleeping space. "This is too much," Rosa kept saying, even as grateful tears streamed down her face. "You've already done too much." But Alexander wasn't finished. He'd made calls to his HR department, finding a position in his company's facilities management that would suit Rosa's skills but pay 3 times what she currently earned and include health benefits. He'd arranged for Maya to attend a good school near his office, where she could participate in after-school programs while Rosa worked. When Alexander and Maya returned that evening, arms full of packages, Rosa was sitting in the apartment in stunned silence. The space had been transformed, not into luxury, but into a safe, warm, properly maintained home. "Why?" Rosa asked again, the question she couldn't stop asking. "Why are you doing all this for us?" Alexander set down the packages and sat across from Rosa while Maya explored the new apartment with wonder. "I've spent 20 years building a company and making money," Alexander said quietly. "I've donated millions to charities, attended countless galas, had my picture in the paper for all my philanthropy. But last night, when Maya asked me for help, was the first time I actually saw the people I'm supposed to be helping. Really saw them." He paused, watching Maya carefully arrange her new clothes in the small dresser. "I've been alone for so long," Alexander continued. "I told myself I was too busy for relationships, for family. But the truth is, I was too afraid. My parents died when I was young, and I convinced myself it was safer not to care too deeply about anyone. So I built walls made of money and success, and I thought I was happy. And now," Rosa asked softly, "now I realize that I've been walking past miracles every single day. People like you, who love so fiercely despite having so little. Children like Maya, who trust so completely despite every reason not to. I don't want to walk past anymore, Rosa. I want to stop. I want to see. I want to be part of something real." Rosa reached across the small space and took Alexander's hand in her work-roughened one. "You're a good man, Alexander Hunt, a truly good man." Christmas morning dawned clear and bright. In Alexander's penthouse, he woke earlier than usual, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: anticipation. He'd invited Rosa and Maya to spend Christmas Day with him, wanting to share the space that had always felt so empty. When they arrived, Maya gasped at the view of the city stretching out below them. "It's like flying," she exclaimed, pressing her face to the window. Alexander had arranged for a chef to prepare Christmas dinner, but Rosa had insisted on bringing her famous rice and beans. You gave us so much, she'd said firmly. Let me give you something from our family to yours. As they cooked together, Rosa teaching Alexander family recipes she'd learned from her own grandmother, Alexander felt something shift into place inside his chest. This was what had been missing. Not just company, but connection. Not just charity, but genuine human relationship. After dinner, as Maya played with the mountain of gifts Alexander had bought her, Rosa sat beside him on the couch. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. When Maya was standing on that street corner, begging for help, I failed her. I left her alone when I should have taken her with me. Pride be damned. I was so worried about her seeing we didn't have enough money. I didn't think about her safety. I almost lost her because of my pride. But you didn't lose her, Alexander said gently. You found each other. And now, he paused, gathering courage for what he was about to say. Now I'd like to be part of your family. If you'll have me. Rosa looked at him with surprise. Part of our family. I don't have anyone, Alexander admitted. No parents, no siblings, no children. I've built this empire, but I have no one to share it with. You and Maya, you've shown me what really matters. Not the money or the success, but the love, the connection, the small moments of helping each other through hard times. He took a shaky breath. I'm not asking to replace anyone, or take over your lives, but maybe I could be like an uncle to Maya, someone she can count on. And maybe you could teach me how to be part of a real family, because I've forgotten if I ever knew. Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Alexander Hunt, I think we can do that. I think we'd be honored to do that. Maya, who'd been pretending not to listen, launched herself at Alexander, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Does this mean you're my Uncle Alexander now? Alexander hugged her back, feeling something crack open in his chest. All those walls he'd built, crumbling at the touch of one little girl's trust. Yes, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm your Uncle Alexander, for as long as you'll have me. As snow began to fall outside the penthouse windows, blanketing the city in white, Alexander looked around at his transformed life. Rosa was in his kitchen, humming as she arranged leftovers. Maya was on his floor, creating an elaborate scene with her new toys. And he was here, part of it all, no longer alone. He thought about all the Christmases he'd spent in this apartment, surrounded by expensive things but empty of love. He thought about all the years he'd walked past people in need, too busy, too focused on building his empire to notice the opportunities for connection. One moment, one decision to stop when everyone else kept walking. That's all it had taken to change everything. We live in a world that teaches us to keep moving, to protect ourselves, to not get involved. We pass hundreds of people every day, and we've become experts at not seeing them. We tell ourselves we're too busy, that someone else will help, that we can't fix everyone's problems. And maybe that's true. Maybe we can't fix everything. But what if we could fix just one thing? What if we could stop for just one person? What if the child reaching out to you, the elderly person struggling with groceries, the stranger who looks lost? What if they're not just someone who needs help, but someone who's meant to change your life? Alexander Hunt had everything money could buy, and nothing that mattered. One frightened little girl on a snowy street corner gave him what $20 billion couldn't: a family, a purpose, a reason to be more than just successful. So I ask you, who are you walking past today? What miracles are you missing because you're too busy looking at your phone, rushing to your next appointment, staying in your comfort zone? The next time someone reaches out, literally or figuratively, will you keep walking like everyone else, or will you be the one who stops? Because I promise you this, the person asking for help isn't the only one who needs saving. Sometimes we need them just as much as they need us. Sometimes the hand we reach out to pull someone up is the same hand that saves us from drowning in our own emptiness. This Christmas, and every day after, choose to stop, choose to see, choose to be the miracle someone is praying for. You never know, they might be the miracle you've been searching for all along.